On today's show, we are taking a look inside Dallas Stars development camp. We'll talk about three players that are performing well and are on the rise to potentially have a bright future in the Dallas Stars organization. We'll talk about Christian Kyrou, Matt Murray, and Matthew Seminoff on today's episode of Locked On Stars.
You're Locked On Stars, your daily podcast on the Dallas Stars. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Howdy, Stars fans. Welcome back to the Locked On Stars podcast, the only daily podcast covering the Dallas Stars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. I'm your host, Dane Lewis, your local expert on all things Dallas Stars hockey, credentialed member of the Dallas Stars media, coming to you on this Wednesday, July 13th. And this is episode 500 of the Locked On Stars podcast. So thank you guys for tuning in and listening. Some of you have probably been here since the beginning, back when the show was hosted by Josh Clark and Kenneth Nash, and you've stuck it out for 500 episodes, and you are now with me. So thank you guys for tuning into the show. Speaking of number 500, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. At the time of recording this, we are sitting at 496 subscribers. So help us get over that 500 subscriber threshold, and we can continue to grow and develop there as well. You can also find and follow us on your favorite podcasting platform as well, whether that's Spotify or Apple. And if you do like the show, you can leave a 5-star rating. Just takes a couple seconds and helps the show out a ton. You can also find and follow me on Twitter at Dane_Lewis. Thank you guys for the continued support. And let's jump into today's episode, highlighting some action from Dallas Stars development camp that's going on all week long in Frisco at the Comerica Center, open to the public. Although today, Wednesday, when you're hearing this, there are no on-ice activities, so really nothing for the general public to see, but the Stars will be back in action on the rink with their prospects on Thursday and Friday. So if you haven't got to check that out already, be sure to do so. I got to go yesterday and got to watch the guys practice and got to meet a few fellow Stars fans and even a handful of listeners. Shout out to Carter, who I met with and got to talk to a little bit at development camp yesterday. That was super cool, super fun. And so be sure to check out development camp if you have not done so already, because you can see some really impressive, bright young players, including the first guy I want to talk about today. And that is, of course, a guy that was drafted in this most recent NHL draft just a few weeks ago. Didn't really get to highlight too much because he was not a first-round selection. But I am, of course, talking about defenseman Christian Kyrou. And you may be thinking that the name Kyrou sounds familiar, and you would be right to believe so. Christian Kyrou was taken 50th overall in the 50th overall pick in the 2022 NHL draft by the Dallas Stars. And his name may sound familiar because he is the brother of Jordan Kyrou, 24 years old, who plays forward for the rival St. Louis Blues, also a second-round pick back in the 2016 draft, and just had one pretty incredible season with St. Louis, his best season of his young NHL career, where he posted 27 goals, 48 assists, and 75 points in total in 74 games played. So it seems like being a talented hockey player runs in the family, and Christian looking to have the same effect for the Dallas Stars franchise that his brother Jordan has had for the Blues in St. Louis. But Christian has been off to a nice start the first 2 days of development camp. He obviously does play a different position than his brother Jordan, playing defenseman, and he does play defenseman while shooting right-handed, which is huge. This is a guy that, you know, could potentially solve some of the quote-unquote issues with all of our defensemen being left-handed within this organization. But Christian does play right-handed defenseman, stands at 5'11", 183 pounds, and currently is a member of the Erie Otters of the OHL, where this past season he posted a stat line of 18 goals, 42 assists, 60 points in total. And Kyrou is a super intriguing player, and I think he could be a really fun guy to watch develop through the ranks and then hopefully be a contributing member of the Dallas Stars defensive core. He's an electric, offensive-minded D-man. He has really good speed, really solid puck handling, and a nice shot to go with it. Imagine a John Klingberg, but a little bit quicker. This guy does play defenseman, but he is all about offense. Where Leon Bichelle was taken in round 1 by the Stars, he is certainly a pure defenseman through and through with a little bit of offense, and it's kind of the opposite with the guy like Christian Kyrou. He can score with just about anybody as far as defensemen go. Some of his highlights are really nice to watch. He's really patient with his shot and really only shoots the puck when he has good, open, clean looks. But he's willing to work for those clean looks, whether he's moving with the puck or getting into position to receive the puck from a teammate somewhere in the offensive zone. And so he does a really good job creating offense from the defensive position, which we all know as people that watch the Dallas Stars. So that's something that this team desperately is in need of. So I imagine that that's something that the coaching staff and the front office really liked from Kyrou's game, and they're hoping that will translate as he continues to grow and develop and hopefully eventually become a member of this team on the NHL roster. He could, like I said, be an eventual great addition to the Stars defensive core and really help, start that next movement of defensemen that are able to generate offense. We're hoping to see Miro Heiskanen take that next step this season and maybe see however else the defense rather forms and what the lineup looks like, and maybe we'll see a little bit more offensive production from them in Pete DeBoer's system. But it's really exciting to have a guy like Kyrou kind of waiting off in the wings, continuing to get a little bit older and get a little bit better and potentially add a little bit more size. I think that's really one of the only knocks on his game, and not even really his game, but that's just he's only 183 pounds at 5'11", so he's not the biggest guy. And that can kind of affect the way that he plays defense, which is ironically the not strong suit of his game being a defenseman. He's really good at offense. Defense, certainly something that he will continue to work on and improve. And a part of that will just be adding some weight, adding some muscle, but also trying to focus on actually playing defense. I think sometimes you can see his tendencies be a little bit more offensive focused, and that can cause him to get burned on the defensive side of the ice, which is something you don't want to see from a guy that you have high hopes for within your organization. But all in all, he's a really exciting player to watch. He's, like I said, a pretty good skater. And so it was really cool to see and watch him move up close at development camp on Tuesday. He moves really cleanly. He moves well, and he plays with a lot of speed and aggression. So if he's anything like his brother Jordan, I think that we can look forward to him being a key contributor to the Dallas Stars franchise for years to come, and be on the lookout for him. If you go to Stars development camp, he wears the number 6 and is normally running around. I believe he was running around with Group A, which on Tuesday they were wearing the white jerseys, and Group 2 was wearing the green Dallas Stars practice jerseys. So he's an incredibly fun player to watch. Seems like he could be a really solid pick, given that the Stars only got him in the second round. Well, coming up next, we will shift our focus to the crease to talk about another impressive player at Stars development camp in goalie Matt Murray. Today's episode of Locked On Stars is brought to you by our friends at BetOnline. BetOnline.net is your number one source for all your betting needs and sports info. Find all the latest sports developments, league reviews, and news. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sports wagering information, including live betting, esports, and scores. And BetOnline.net remains the best spot for all your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. BetOnline.net is the fastest and easiest way to check in on all of your favorite sports and events, including MMA, boxing, and even golf. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action. BetOnline.net, where the game starts. All right, let's keep talking about Dallas Stars development camp going on in Frisco at the Comerica Center. We talked about Christian Kyrou, the young up-and-coming defenseman who was drafted this past weekend in Montreal by the Stars. But now I want to talk about a guy that has been with the organization for a little bit longer, but still finding his way through the organization at development camp, and that is, of course, goalie Matt Murray. Not to be confused with the Matt Murray who was playing for the Ottawa Senators and is now a member of the Toronto Maple Leafs, who also plays goalie. I know that that's confusing. It was confusing for me for a second as well, but two different guys, both named Matt Murray, both play goalie for different National Hockey League organizations. But Matt Murray for the Stars who we'll be talking about for the remainder of this segment, has been making some really nice outings as a member of the Texas Stars at the AHL level, but has also looked pretty sharp through 2 days of development camp. Murray played goalie back in college for the University of Massachusetts, where they did win the 2021 NCAA National Championship. So he's a really experienced veteran goalie at the collegiate level. I think he played 5 years, got that extra year of COVID eligibility. I think he started back in the 2017-2018 season and then played all the way up until 2021, where they were national champions. And also really cool because he played for the UMass Minutemen, and the Stars are in possession of the Minutemen line of Hintz, Pavelski, Robertson. So that's just a little fun connection that I made in my head, and seems that it was meant to be that a guy like Murray is a member of this organization. But then not only was he really good in college, where he was a national champion, he's also made some appearances with the Texas Stars in the AHL. He played 6 regular season games for them, where he posted some really impressive stats: a 1.68 goals against average, a 9.47 save percentage, 1 shutout, and a 5-1 record. He also made 2 playoff appearances where he did not record wins, but he did post decent numbers with a 1.52 goals against average and a 9.52 save percentage. So he's a guy that has a ton of potential at a young age. He's in his early 20s, and clearly is not necessarily set to be any sort of key member of the NHL roster anytime soon. Seems like the Stars are going to be set there for this season, at least with Ottinger and Wedgwood. But this is a guy that it's going to be nice to have him within the organization in case, Wedgwood eventually does move on at the end of his deal, or heaven forbid, if there's ever any injuries down the road. This will be a guy that the Stars are glad that they have if he continues to develop at a high level and be a really competitive goalie for the organization. He's looked really sharp going up against some really good goal scorers at development camp, including the likes of Logan Stankoven, Antonio Stranges, Connor Roulette. The list goes on and on. Some guys that can really put some force behind the puck and score goals effectively. Murray has held his own against those guys and many other players playing for the AHL, as well as some really talented college players as well. And so there's reason to believe that he and any other really goalie that comes through this organization will be in a good position to succeed. We have all reason to believe that the Stars are going to be, setting up their goalies for success for a long time. Clearly, like I mentioned, we have Ottinger and Wedgwood, who have shown they are very capable, qualified NHL goalies, but that's large in part due to Jeff Reese, who has been with the team for 6 seasons as the goaltender coach. And then, of course, even Ben Bishop was out on the ice Tuesday with Matt Murray and the other goalie at development camp, Remy Poirier. So really cool to see. We've talked about before the kind of the effect, the lingering effect that Ben Bishop has, although he is no longer playing goalie in the NHL. He's still very much involved with the Stars organization and looking to help, kind of shape the future of the goaltending room, I guess you could say, for the Dallas Stars for years to come, both with Ottinger and Wedgwood, but he's also able to come in and mentor and teach and coach up these young guys. He wasn't just on the ice. I mean, he was in the goalie pads teaching guys how to handle the puck with his stick, and I'm sure giving them plenty of other knowledge and insight as well that just is maybe hard to come by in some organizations, because not very many teams have guys that have just recently been playing NHL hockey that close to their organization who can come in and coach, mentor, teach. It's a really unique opportunity that any goalie in this organization has. And while we have Ottinger and Wedgwood seemingly for the next few seasons, this is nice to know that we have other guys that are being worked on at the AHL level, which is where I expect Murray to be for the majority of the season. But I think that could make that team really exciting down in Cedar Park. He was really good and competitive for them through 6 games in the regular season, and even gave them some chances to win some games in the postseason. He's a really exciting prospect who I think could be overlooked just due to the fact that it seems like Ottinger really is the future of this team in the net. So just because we do seem to have things figured out in the crease in between the pipes for the Stars this season and seemingly next season as well, certainly can still get excited about the potential future, whether it's a backup position for Murray or wherever else he could get taken in the NHL. He's a really fun, intriguing player to watch, so keep an eye out for him if you're going to Stars development camp this week. Well, coming up next, we will close out the episode talking about another 2022 draft pick. This guy was taken near the back end of the draft, but has shown a lot of offensive upside and is a teammate in the WHL of another really well-known Dallas Stars prospect. We'll talk about Matthew Seminoff after another quick break. Today's episode of Locked On Stars is brought to you by our friends at Rock Auto. With the ever-increasing numbers of makes and models, it's now impossible for your local chain auto parts store to stock all the parts that you need. Why endure often pointless or seemingly intimidating questioning and wait while the person behind the counter orders the parts on their computer, choosing the only brand that their warehouse happens to carry? You have computers with access to rockauto.com at home and in your pocket. You can save time and money when using Rock Auto. Rock Auto's prices are reliably low for every single customer, and they're a family business serving do-it-yourselfers for over 20 years. They have everything that you could possibly need for your car or truck, including brake parts, tail lamps, motor oil, and even new carpet. Go to rockauto.com right now and see all the parts available for your car or truck. Write Locked On in their How Did You Hear About Us box so they know that we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car or truck could ever need at rockauto.com. All right, we're closing out today's episode of Locked On Stars, talking about the last prospect that I want to highlight from Stars development camp. Just 2 days in, there are some honorable mentions who I'm excited to continue to see on Thursday and Friday. Connor Roulette, a forward that was drafted in the 4th round in 2021. George Fagaris, a defenseman drafted in the 3rd round of this year's draft. And PJ Fletcher, a forward who is currently a player at the University of Miami, Ohio. Tons of really intriguing prospects here at development camp. It's not just the 3 I'm highlighting today. There's plenty of other talented players, and you'll just have to go see them for yourself at the Comerica Center in Frisco. But the last guy I do want to highlight is Matthew Seminoff, who was a teammate this past season of Logan Stankoven's. They both played for the Kamloops Blazers of the WHL. Seminoff was taken in round 6 by the Stars of this year's draft and was super impressive this past season with the Blazers. He played usually on the same line as Logan Stankoven, so they established some really good chemistry together. And through 64 games, Seminoff posted a stat line of 26 goals, 31 assists, and 57 points. Both Seminoff and Stankoven play very similar styles in that they both play very fast, they play aggressive, and they can both seemingly score with ease. You're almost never going to see these guys take a shift off, and they're really never going to do anything that's not 100% full speed, full effort, which is something that we've been praising Stankoven for quite some time now, because it's very evident with the numbers that he put up in the WHL this past season. But now we're starting to see it with Seminoff some too here at Stars development camp, and even during his time with the Blazers. I mean, that's a really impressive stat line, 57 points. I mean, any player would want to put up those numbers. Of course, he's going to be overshadowed a little bit by playing with the best player in the WHL this past year, with Stankoven not only on the same team, but on the same line as him. But they were, of course, able to kind of feed off one another, and they both were beneficiaries of the other one's play style. Seminoff is an incredibly fast skater, one of the best skaters in the NHL draft, yet he fell to round 6. He is a weapon on the forecheck and on the breakaway because of that speed. There's several instances where I've seen some film on him where guys think that they have, a route out of their defensive zone, or they think they can get to the neutral zone. And then all of a sudden, here comes Seminoff with his speed to help keep the puck on his side of the ice. And that either results, in a broken up play for the opposition or a possession for Seminoff's team, which could be huge for the Stars going forward. They always want to get those guys that are willing to do the extra work to help put the team in good positions. But he can also use that speed on the offensive side as well. He can carry the puck through the neutral zone and into the offensive zone with his speed and help get a play set up, or he can move without the puck pretty effectively as well and put himself in a nice position to get a shot off or to make an extra pass to help set up a teammate that has also positioned themselves in an opportunistic spot. Certainly, Seminoff would benefit from adding some pounds to his frame. He's 5'11", 183 pounds. But again, this is something that we talked about with prospects that's just going to come over time. He's not expected to have any time at the NHL level anytime soon, but certainly is a guy that we can get excited about, because many draft projections and profiles that I saw on this guy this week, even going into development camp and even after, had him going somewhere between the first 3 rounds of the draft, yet he fell to the 6th. And Logan Stankoven has even been quoted as saying that the Stars getting him, at all in the draft was an absolute steal, especially that late, that he's excited to have him along there. Of course, he's going to say that because they're teammates, they're friends, but I think Stankoven not only believes those things, but believes that he's an excellent player who can help benefit this organization over the course of the next several seasons. And I think it's really nice that we have these 2 young, bright, promising players who have spent time together already, who have that established chemistry, and they could be a ton of fun to watch for years to come. But Seminoff is a guy that I didn't really know about going into this year's draft, a guy that I know I certainly overlooked, and it seems like many other people did as well. But as we know, the Stars have a knack for finding some of the best talent in the NHL in the later rounds of the draft. I mean, Jacob Peterson, who I think was taken in the 4th or 5th round of his draft, he was taken later on. The Stars have just drafted extremely well over the past few seasons, both in the early rounds, but also the late rounds. And I think Seminoff could be no different. He could be one of those next great stories of guys that were overlooked coming into the NHL and even overlooked on their journey from going as a prospect on draft night to eventually making their debut in the big league. And I think he could be one of the best stories to watch over the next several seasons. So remember the name Matthew Seminoff, because I think he has a great opportunity to be a key contributor for the Dallas Stars at the forward position for years to come, especially alongside his teammate and friend Logan Stankoven, who we also already know so much about and know that he's going to be a big impact player as well. So Seminoff, Murray, and a guy like Kyrou, all a part of this team's future. And you can see them all at development camps. So again, I encourage you to go on Thursday or Friday if you are able. It's a ton of fun, super relaxed environment, very, easy to hang out, and plenty of seating options to watch all of the action nice and close. A little bit different than an NHL game, clearly, because it is practice and camp, but it's really unique to kind of get that nice up close view. I know if you're like me, you never really get the opportunity to sit right there on the glass or right there by the rink that often in a hockey environment. So it really kind of adds, at least for me, my appreciation of the game, kind of seeing what these guys have to do physically in order to play hockey the right way, just the way that they make their cuts, the way they move on the ice. It's a lot different at that level, and it's a truly unique experience. And I'm really glad that it's back open to the public now that the pandemic is shutting things down less and less, and it seems like we are kind of moving out of that stage. So really cool opportunity. And again, I encourage you to go if you haven't done so already. But that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Stars. Thank you again for tuning in and for making Locked On Stars your first listen of the day. Be sure to subscribe to our show on YouTube. We are almost at 500 subscribers and now trying to move closer and closer to getting to 1,000 subscribers. Sounds like a big goal, but I know we can reach it. You can also find and follow us on your favorite podcasting platform. Remember that we are free and available no matter where or how you listen. You can also find me on Twitter at Dane_Lewis. You can also find our show as well at Locked On Stars. And you're probably listening to this on Wednesday, and it's, of course, going to be coming out Wednesday morning. But then free agency will start this afternoon, and so I'm sure we will be talking a ton about all of the aftermath of free agency sometime on tomorrow's show. Should be an insane afternoon with tons of guys on the move set to play for different rosters, and we'll cover it all as far as what news breaks for the Dallas Stars. And so we'll talk about that as the week continues to unfold. We'll see you next time, Stars fans. Have a great Wednesday.